Welcome to this month's Outstanding Ohio webinar. And this month, our topic is downsizing, or as some people like to call it, right sizing. I'm Erin Johnson. I'm a realtor with eXp Realty, and I specialize in the Copley, Fairlawn, Bath, and surrounding Akron suburbs, Summit County, in helping people downsize and also upsize. And I'm also able to serve most of Northeast Ohio. And I have with me here today my friend Jody Schweiger from Caring Transitions, and they specialize in helping people downsize or right size by helping deal with all the stuff and decluttering and the packing and the moving. And they do such a great job of that. And I thought she'd be a great resource here today to talk about this topic. So what we're going to do is we're going to start with kind of the when is the right time to downsize, and what should you consider in terms of when to make that move, and what you should consider in your next living situation. And then Jody's going to specialize and talk more on the how, like really as relates to dealing with this stuff, because I feel like that's really the big thing that people have a hard time dealing with. They know maybe I should do something else, but oh my gosh, I've got this house with 30 years worth of stuff or 50 years worth of stuff. And it can be very overwhelming. And Jody does a great job of helping people through that. So I'm going to share my screen here and we're going to jump right in. There we go. So the first thing is really assessing your current living situation by evaluating your current health and living situation, considering the location, the size, the accessibility, the safety of your current home, but then also assessing how your current home can or maybe cannot meet and accommodate your needs as you age. So the first decision to me is really this idea of, is it possible for you to kind of age in place, or are you going to need to relocate, whether it's now or in the future? And so some factors to consider in that, in terms of having a safe home. I think critical to single story layout. I mean, you can look at putting in like a stair lift, but I think that gets tough over time. At a bare minimum, you need to have a bedroom and a full bathroom on the first floor to make sure you can live on the first floor. Laundry on the first floor is another critical thing. You do not want to be going down steps, up steps with a big laundry basket full of laundry. But other accessibility features, could think about how many steps it takes to get into the house. Would it be possible to put a ramp somewhere if needed? Grab bars by the shower, wide doorways, thinking about the flooring. If you consider at some point you might be in a walker or a wheelchair, is there, a rug you're gonna trip on? Is there transitions between flooring that are bumpy and tricky? Is there a step down into the family room? All those things should be considered. And then the other thing, kind of outside of the house itself, is where is the house located, proximate to other things in your life? So medical facilities, your doctor, a hospital, grocery stores, church, pharmacy, and even friends and family. So maybe the house is perfect for you, but it's 45 minutes from the nearest family member or friend that's going to be able to help you out as you age, and that just might not be great. And so that could be another consideration. And then also, how hard is it to maintain the yard, to keep it up, and the house itself? So considering what modifications are needed in order to make your home safe, and can it be modified to be safe for you for, again, not just now, but into the future. So I put together the signs it's time to move. And the first is that the home can't be modified. So maybe it is 2 stories and the only bathroom's on the second floor, and to modify it to make it work for you would just be an enormous undertaking. I mean, anything's possible, I suppose, but to be able to put a bathroom and a bedroom on the first floor might be really challenging, and a laundry room, right? If you have difficulty with stairs or mobility issues, or a low level of independence, or a decline in your health, if you're just getting to the point where you can hardly take care of yourself, let alone your house, that's a sign it's time to consider another living situation. Again, the proximity to the medical facilities, to your friends, your families, your support system, you want to make sure that they're nearby. As well as, is there any safety concern related to the neighborhood? If you're to the point where, there's, God forbid, some kind of, guns happening in your neighborhood, or people getting broken into, or something where you just don't feel safe at home anymore, that's definitely a sign that it's time to move, particularly if you're living on your own. And then inability to maintain the property. I talked a little bit about the yard, but also sometimes it's just, even if the house is perfect and it's, single story and the laundry's on the first floor and you've got wide doorways and all those things we talked about, but you're living your entire day in like 2 rooms and there's like another 2,000 square foot of space that you never touch. That could be a consideration for maybe that's, not the best place for you, because there is a certain amount of upkeep and maintenance, even if you don't use the space with a property that's too big for you. So, what options are out there? Of course, there's always the option to move to another single family home, a ranch, maybe a smaller one, or a condo or a townhome if you want to still be a homeowner but don't want to have as much maintenance and responsibility. That could be a good option because they'll take care of usually the landscaping and the snow plowing and things like that. There are some 55 and older communities as an option. If you are open to renting, you could look at an apartment. And then there's always the independent living communities or the assisted living facilities, depending on the level of need that you have. Or if you're lucky enough to have a relative that you can move in with. But again, you have to consider still that it's got to meet your requirements as you age, that ideally it would be a first floor bedroom or maybe some kind of in-law type suite, that you are not going to have trouble being safe in that space. So it's great to be with somebody else, but you still want to be able to meet all those requirements to be safe. So how do you evaluate these options? Well, first, of course, I recommend you work with an experienced real estate agent if you're looking to make a move into another home. But one consideration is how much space do you need for your lifestyle and how much privacy do you desire for the way you want to live? So do you need a guest bedroom? Do you need um, a sewing room or a workplace for a workbench or whatever your hobbies are? Do maybe all of your needs could be met in a small efficiency apartment, but you still host Thanksgiving. I mean, at some point you have to consider, don't make your space for that thing that happens once a year, but you also, if you have the family over for dinner every Sunday and you only have a place with a kitchen table big enough for 2 people, that's, so you have to consider these things, right? And the privacy. So like some of those options, like you could end up in an apartment with people above you, below you, on both sides. And if you are one that you're used to living in a house and the nearest neighbor is a half mile away and you don't like people, like that might not be the best option for you. So that's, how much space do you really need that you're going to use on an ongoing basis? How much privacy do you want? And then making sure it has those accessibility features we talked about to serve you as you age, and the proximity. So are you close enough to your doctor, your hospital, your pharmacy, your church, the grocery store? Maybe even the bus line would be a consideration if you're going to be to the point where you can't drive, but you could still take a bus. That could be a consideration. And your support network, your friends, your family, the people that are going to be there for you, how close are they to place you're looking at? And then another big consideration is, again, depending on your lifestyle, like how much social interaction and community engagement are you looking for? Are you looking to be able to meet people, to do social things with them? Are you looking for your housing option to provide that for you? Because some, even condos might have HOAs where they do some activities and things. Obviously, the independent living, assisted livings are going to have more things. The 55 and older communities are going to have more organized things versus just moving into another house or maybe even just a condo. But then also amenities. So by amenities, I mean, like, do you want to have a pool, walking trails, a workout room, or these organized activities? But also keep in mind that you're probably paying for those in some form or fashion. So know what it is that you want and what you would use, because if it's not something that you're interested in, then maybe don't go to a place that offers all that, because you are probably going to be paying for it in some kind of fee, or maybe it costs more to live there and so forth. But if it's important to you to be able to swim all year long and you want to try to find a place with an indoor pool, there's not that many of them, but they're out there. Being able to prioritize those things that are important to you is helpful as you're choosing what option to go with. And then, of course, you got to talk about the cost, right? I mean, you pipe dream, I would love to have all this stuff, but what's it going to cost? And it's not only the cost of like the monthly, whether it's the mortgage or the rent, but you have to consider if you're in a place where there's an HOA fee, the homeowners association fee. That's a fee that I've seen them be like $500-$600 a month. Like those things can add up. And it's great that you're like, oh, I don't have to worry because they're taking care of everything and they've got a pool and they do all this great stuff. But just make sure that you account for that, and know that that fee is never going to go away. It's only likely to go up. And the same thing for taxes and insurance. So If you are going to be in a place where you own and you have to continue to pay property taxes, even when you have that place paid off, you're still going to have to pay taxes. And again, they don't typically go down. Over time, they're only going to go up. And if you're comparing one city to another, there can be sometimes pretty significant differences between the property taxes of one location versus another. So something to think about there. And then there's also the amount of upkeep or maintenance that's required. So if you are in a home or something where you're still required to take care of the yard, looking for a place with minimal landscaping, someplace not too big would be great. You got to realize at some point, even if you can do it yourself now, at some point you're probably going to have to hire that out. So again, that's going to come at a cost. But also you want to pay attention to the age of the big ticket items. So the roof, the windows, the furnace and air conditioner, the water heater, the appliances. Don't get, distracted by these shiny granite countertops and vinyl plank floors and forget about the stuff that if it goes, it's going to cost you 10, 20 grand to replace. And so you have to factor that into, the cost of homeownership. Something, typically there's always something, and some things are bigger than other things. So just knowing what you're getting yourself into when you buy these houses is important. You can mitigate that risk a little bit with a home warranty, which covers some stuff that home insurance doesn't cover. It covers plumbing, electric, appliances, heating and cooling. It won't cover your roof or windows. But if your, water heater goes out or your furnace goes out, you might be able to mitigate a big expense by having that warranty as an option. But just knowing, there's going to be a certain amount of maintenance and upkeep. And at some point, it's either going to be physical requirement or a financial requirement, depending on your ability to do it, and making sure you have the capacity one way or the other to be able to handle the amount of upkeep and maintenance required for the place. And then last but not least, if you have pets, don't forget about them, because some of these places will have restrictions and policies that maybe, your dog can only be a certain size, or you can only have a maximum of 2 cats. Or even if they do allow them, you have to think about, do I really want to have a dog on a 10th floor apartment that's going to be barking and I have to get in the elevator multiple times a day to take it out? So making sure that as you're exploring options, what the rules and regulations and restrictions are around pets, if you have one, or if you're thinking about getting one, or there could be an additional fee associated to having a pet if they allow it. So something else to consider. So that's what I have in terms of just high level, some of the things to consider about whether it's time to make that move. And then if you are going to make that move, some of the things you should be thinking about as you explore your options. And I'm going to turn it over to Jody now to talk about more of the how in this art of downsizing and the decluttering, which can be such an overwhelming thing.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jody Schweiger with Caring Transitions. We are a transition, downsizing, relocation, and estate sale company. Caring Transitions was founded on the belief that the most successful life transitions happen when care and compassion are involved. Now, we aren't a moving company, although we can manage your move, and we aren't an estate sale company, although we hold estate sales. A mover can come in and move the kitchen table, but Caring Transitions moves 50 years of memories that happened at that table. So there's a big difference. We are the most trusted, largest company of this type, and we have over 270 franchises in the country. So we all share transitions. There's transitions all through our lives. We get married, we have children, we might change jobs. Transitions are a part of life. So just as you can't fit a square peg into a round hole, you can't fit everybody's transition into one category. People have different ways of dealing with transitions. It can be emotional in different aspects. It's really important to take into consideration your personal situation. So as we let go of things, we let go of negative energy and we can let new positive energy in. If you have a home that is so cluttered and so overwhelmed with things, It usurps your energy. It creates, it can create depression. It definitely has an ability to increase stress hormones, which of course can lead to higher blood pressure and, just an overall decline of your health. So what are some reasons that you hold on to things? Well, there are sentimental reasons, like things were handed down to you. It was a gift. It was made by your children. So Lord knows we have every project they
Oh,
ever did.
yes.
Um, and it could be a memento of something special that happened in your life, or you're saving it for your kids or your grandkids. Your kids and grandkids don't want your crystal. They don't want your china. They're not into sentimental things anymore. So if you're saving them for them, I think you'll be surprised when you offer them your things that they won't want them.
Hmm.
But there are also financial reasons that you hold on to things. One is that you spend a lot of money on it,
Hmm.
but that doesn't always um, create a reason for holding on to something just because you spent a lot of money on it however many years ago. Um, you got a great deal on something and you bought multiples of them. Now you have multiples taking up space in your house, or it's worth a lot of money, or you think it will be worth a lot of money at some point. But I can tell you that when we started this presentation this morning, for instance, there were 14,321 Hummels on eBay. So as you can see, a lot of the collections that we save have been really overwhelmed by the internet. They've just been saturated and their value has gone down. You can use broken items for their parts. No, you can't. The vacuum saving for the parts has changed. They changed the model, they changed the part. It really doesn't work. And finally, the number one reason that people hold on to things is that they think they might need it someday.
As soon as I
Someday,
throw it out, I'm gonna need it, right?
right,
I'm
right.
a sucker for that.
And someday, someday doesn't always come.
Still useful.
Right, right. So there are 9 points that you can evaluate when it's time to downsize or declutter. So the first one is when you walk into your house, does it feel
Oops, sorry.
crowded? Um, do you have to walk around things to get anywhere in your house? Are there books of, are there stacks of books that make it difficult to navigate with a walker or perhaps a wheelchair at some point? Those things are important to navigate, and so they're important to evaluate. Have you lost things in your house? You can't find things that you want because you don't know where they could be under all that clutter. Do you have items that you purchased that are still in bags or have tags on them? Obviously, you're not using them. Do you have no idea what's in your storage bins? We tend to collect storage bins because that's how we declutter. We put it in a bin, we put it in our basement or in our garage, and we forget about it. Now we don't even know what's in those bins. And in order to declutter, you have to unpack those bins. And that's a true sign that it's time to downsize. So, are the surfaces in your home cluttered? Do they have all kinds of stuff on them? The counters, um, especially the kitchen counter and the bathroom counters. And then the other thing is, are there clothes flowing out of your closets and drawers? One of the first things that we can declutter or downsize is the clothes in our closets. So if it's something that you haven't worn, if it's a size that doesn't fit you anymore, those are easy things to remove from your closet and downsize them. And then, do you always have to clean up before anybody comes to your house? So you can't have anybody come in unless you clean up, or perhaps you can't have anybody come in at all because it's impossible to throw some things in another room while somebody comes to visit. So these are social effects. They can be something that creates your home as a storage bin itself, and it doesn't allow for positive energy like visiting with friends and family, um, holding gatherings, having your relatives come in. Those are all special things that affect how you live and what your living space looks like. And then, do you have storage units that you're paying for that are full and you certainly can't remember what's in them? Or you're paying for them thinking of some of the things that we discussed as far as why you're saving them. You might need it someday. You're saving old vacuums, which is my favorite example, for their parts. All these types of things in a storage unit cost money and time in order to declutter them.
Oh boy, it's like therapy here. All the things.
So where do we get started? Well,
Yes,
you
where
want
do
to
we
start
get
with
started?
a non-emotional space and elicit the help of family and friends or a professional to steer you in the right direction. So for instance, a spice cabinet, a linen closet, a junk drawer. In that junk drawer, you might have 3 of something, 4 of something, or more. When I decluttered my utensil drawer, I found I had 3 ice cream scoops. One was broken, one had some damage on it, and I probably wouldn't use it even if I had to, and one worked. So obviously I kept that one. I eliminated 2 ice cream scoops from my utensil drawer that only cover up what I really want to need. And I can't find because of the clutter. So when you pick your non-emotional space, set a timer and keep to that time. Don't worry that you get frustrated with telling yourself you're going to declutter this entire room. It's not going to happen. It's too much at one time. So set a timer, keep to that time. If you get finished with your 20 minutes, set the timer again if you're really feeling like it, but stop at the allotted time. There are some tricks and tips that can help with this downsizing or decluttering process. For instance, the Ohio method. OHIO is only handle it once. That way, if you pick up an item, look at it and say, oh, I'll have to decide later what I do with that, and you set it aside, you only have to go back to that again and again and again. And it really helps to only handle it once.
Love that.
And then what to do with those things? Well, we call it the pyramid of distribution. So the first thing you can do is gift some things. Now, again, your children might not want that crystal and silver, but maybe your girlfriend has always admired your china. Gift it to them. And secondly, you can sell some things. Now, we have a proprietary online auction site whereby we can sell items without people traipsing through your home, and we get really good results with our online auctions. Now you can donate things, and that's always a very big solution for where you can take your things. You can recycle some things. Metal is a big recycler, obviously paper and plastic, but oftentimes metal, like your vacuum, can be recycled. And then finally, if you need to discard things like the vacuum, go ahead and do that. So what can be donated? Well, there's a whole slew of things that can be donated. Mostly anything that you can think of that somebody else could use. There's really a lifespan that we have. There's a lifespan for things too, just like pets and plants. So when that lifespan is over, and you no longer need what you're having, then donations are a really big solution. So you see here that bedding and towels, for instance, goes very far in helping out the Humane Society. Um, Furniture in good condition, dishes, pots, and pans, those things are very good to be donated to um, a, a, a charity called Charity. And they help children who have outgrown the foster system. And now they're 18 years old, they're expected to get an apartment, and they have nothing. So the utensils, the small appliances, as I said, dishes, pots, and pans, and small furniture can be donated to them, and they will pick it up. Books can sometimes be donated to libraries, although they're a little pickier now.
Hmm.
And during COVID, they weren't taking them at all, but those restrictions have really eased up. So charitable organizations that you can donate to, there's a whole list of them here. Obviously, there's Habitat for Humanity, Goodwill, and Salvation Army, but they don't have to get everything. You can be specific about where you can donate your things, and then you're really assured that they will be used. For instance, if you have an old telephone that nobody uses and nobody wants, theater groups often use them as props. Same with canes and hats
Hmm.
and vintage clothing. The theater groups love it. So
Yeah,
you
it's a
can,
great idea.
yeah, there are all kinds of ways to get around your stuff and making sure that somebody else can use it.
Is there any rule of thumb in terms of like when you should do like the estate sale versus just kind of donate and trash it, or like how do you and how does that work when you do the estate sale? Like what does it cost and stuff typically?
Well, oftentimes, we can't get to your things that can be donated or sold until we declutter and sort and organize through your things. Now, there's a cost involved in sorting and organizing and preparing for the estate sale,
Mm,
um, but those things are most often determined by an in-person consultation, which is free of charge. So when I talked earlier about, getting a specific plan together, we want to do that for each person individually. And
hmm.
so we need to see the space and see really what we're in for as far as obtaining your goals of clearing out the house or selling some things. So the cost really, I don't have a price list. Um, that's really better set during the consultation. And then we would prepare a proposal with an estimate of how much the charges would be. Typically, for online auctions, we retain a 35 to 45% commission
Okay.
depending on what is involved in the online auction. For instance, if we need to move things to our warehouse, um, there's a separate charge for that. But
Okay.
most of the time, we can do it from the home. The online auctions run for 5 to 7 days. And after which time there is a 1 day, 4 hour period that we completely staff at the house where people can come and pick up their winning bids.
Mm. And is there a certain number of things or value of things that's kind of the tipping point of like, yeah, it makes sense to do an estate sale versus not? Like you're not going to do it for just a handful of things typically, right?
Correct. So one of the things we can do is determine how many things you have that are of value to go on an online auction. Again, that happens during the consultation. And typically for your own individual auction, we like to have approximately 100 items.
100. Okay.
However, if you have fewer than 100, it is also possible to put your items in a multifamily auction
Oh,
um,
okay.
that we run from our warehouse. And that way, obviously, we keep everything separate. The items have separate SKUs, etc. And that's another way to um, liquidate anything that is fewer than 100 items.
Okay. Okay. That makes sense. Is there any, what are some of the surprises of like, I didn't think that would be such a hot item in an auction? Like we know that, like you said, like the Hummels and the China's not really worth anything, but are there like some surprises on the other end?
Yes, there are. We had a Madame Alexander dress.
Okay.
Madame Alexander is a doll. It was a dress that was from a 1950s doll. And there was a bidding war between California and Florida.
Okay.
And the dress ended up going for $400.
For a
And
doll
it's
dress?
a
Wow.
doll dress. Um, so sometimes there are definitely surprises. And because our online auctions reach all of our 270 or so franchises, you get a lot of traffic on the online auctions, not to mention the fact that we have hundreds of followers that are notified of our auctions. So we bring a lot of traffic to the site.
Huh. That's crazy.
There's another item that was a surprise.
Yeah.
Um, it was a Yadro. Now, Yadros again are saturated on eBay. Um, they have lost a great deal of their value, unfortunately. But there was a Yadro that was done in all black of
Uh,
horses, and
Okay.
Yadros were typically done in pastel colors.
Right.
So this Yadro was of 4 horses, and I didn't think it would sell at all. It was all black. It wasn't exactly the pretty
Doesn't sound
pastel
very
colors of
nice.
yacht
Yeah.
road. Um, it went for $1,200.
Whoa.
And again, there
Wow.
was a bidding war.
Okay. That's wild. Yeah.
So another place to start decluttering, um, not only is setting a timer and taking a small non-emotional spot, but these are 10 things that most people have too many of. It's a great place to start. The towels, as I mentioned, are valuable for pet rescue and the
Hmm.
Humane Society. Another things that people have too many of are vases, believe it or not. Every time you get a small flower arrangement from a store, they give you a vase. Well, it's not a very expensive vase. Sometimes it's not even a pretty vase, but you tend to keep it because someday you might need that size of vase.
Yes.
But
Someday.
maybe your aunt gave you a beautiful hand blown vase from Italy. Keep that one.
Yeah.
Um, make sure that you're keeping things that you really love. And drinking glasses and coffee mugs. Many people have too many of these. I was guilty of it. I was a teacher and I received a coffee mug for every Christmas, Teacher Appreciation Day from my students. So I finally had to go into that cupboard, and it took one cupboard and a drawer to handle all of those coffee mugs. And I realized that I can hold that coffee mug, think of that child, and let it go. No one's going to take the memories of those students away from me, and I didn't need a mug to remind me of them. Tupperware is another thing people have too many of, and most people don't have the lids that go to them. That's
Mhm.
a cupboard or drawer that is definitely unsightly and a good place to declutter. Books we talked about can be donated. If you've kept every book that you've read and don't plan to reread it, there's really no point in having 12 bookshelves that are full of the books that you read.
Good point.
Office supplies. Um, we tend to have a lot of office supplies, paper clips, staplers, um, pens and pencils. You tend to get pens at every event that you go to, and you just don't need them all. Hangers is another one. Every time you bring something to the dry cleaner, you get a hanger with it. So it's really better to recycle those hangers. Use a wooden hanger or the hangers that have the felt on them because they hold your clothes better, and you can recycle the ones that come from the dry cleaner. Or if you don't want to get those hangers, keep the ones from the dry cleaner, but weed through them every now and again. A lot of people have too many of a lot of things. And it's really important to be able to start on non-emotional things like these.
Mm-hmm.
So we often call downsizing right sizing. It means establishing a living space that meets today's needs and which includes your comfort, your safety, and your personality. So we talked about how items have lifespans just like people. And if you have a lot of items from a hobby, for instance, that you no longer are involved in, those are not meeting today's needs at all. We had a client who was a baker. She actually had a baking business in her home. She had every pan, pot, mixer that you could ever imagine for baking. It took over her kitchen, but it also took over her basement. She had row upon row of a 4,000 square foot basement. Her home was enormous, and the basement covered the entire footprint of the house. So she realized that it was getting too much for her. She was getting a little older, not a senior, but she just didn't want to bake anymore. She got tired of it. So we suggested that she donate some things. And she decided to donate some of the things to her granddaughter. And she taught her granddaughter how to bake, gave her all the secret recipes. And her granddaughter then began her own what do I want to say, her own means of baking, and could carry on the family traditions.
Nice. Yep, I can relate to that with my craft supplies.
Yes, you
My
can.
problem is I'm very much of like, well, if it's organized and it has a home, then I feel better about it, but it still has too much stuff. It's still probably more than I need, but it's like at least it's organized and I know where it is. But
So you know what's in all those bins?
I got labels on the outside of them and yeah, but it's still probably more craft supplies than I could use in the next, 5 lifetimes. And I did get rid of a lot, but yeah,
That is
need to
funny.
get crafting.
So there are 5 steps to right sizing. The first thing you want to do is determine your space. So whether you stay in your home and age in place, or whether you are moving to a smaller space because that space of 50 years no longer meets your needs, you have to determine what kind of space you're going to have. Will you have a living room and a dining room? Will you have a combo room, a great room? How many bedrooms? Those kind of things need to be considered. And then you have to decide what you need. So in a dining room, you need a table, or in a dining area, you need a table and chairs. In a living room, you need places to sit. You might need a place to read. So include what you love. Maybe you have a favorite chair that you sit in most of the time, and you'd love to have people come visit you, so you need another chair. You love to read, so you need a lamp, but which one do you like best? The brown one or the blue one? The tall one or the short one? That's how you include what you love. And then you have to add from what you want. So, you might want another chair for two people to visit. You might want a nightstand by your bed. Not necessarily what you need, but what you'd really like to have because it makes it nicer when you're in your bedroom. And then again, modify for your space. So if you determine that what you want is 5 chairs in your bedroom, again, you have to look at that space and realize there's not room for 5 chairs. So take your chair that you need, your favorite lamp that you love, add a chair that you want, but leave the other 3 chairs out. So finally, I'll read to you this quote from Sarah Brethnack. She wrote, Simple Abundance, all about right sizing. And she said, the size of your house is not related to the size of your soul, but the condition of your dwelling does reflect the condition of your being, your mind, your body, and your spirit.
It's awesome. Yeah, it's true. It's having a lot of clutter around really can affect your stress level and your happiness even. But it's so tough though to like get rid of it. And yeah, what do you keep? And so God bless you for helping people through that. It's a lot. It can be very emotional. Yeah. And the
It
longer you've
can
been in
be.
the house, the harder it is because there's more stuff and more memories and yeah. So
I've been
well
doing
think
it for 10 years and I love it every day.
yeah,
So
that's awesome. Yeah. So yeah, I know you recently helped a client that I'm working with as well that I think he said he'd been working on decluttering for 3 years before you came in. And I can't remember if it was you or him that said it would have been another 10 without you coming in there. It was a slow go. So yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. And if anyone has questions for either of us, I'll put our contact information in the notes of the recording. And we're happy to help you out and answer any questions you have. Thank you.
thank you.